Hello all, good morning. I am Shravani Dey, the research assistant at Sarvodaya the Rice Foundation. We are pleased to invite you to our ninth webinar of Sarvodaya on the topic of food fortification and nutritional security. We are honored to have Ms. Deepthi Gulati ma'am, nutrition and public health specialist, as our expert today. I request you to keep discipline, keep your mic muted so that we can carry forward. And if you have question, you can ask later on in the comment section or maybe by switching on your mic and video. Okay. Now I request Sneha ma'am, our editorial director, Sarvodaya the Rice Foundation, to welcome our expert and provide the program overview for today. Ma'am, over to you.
Thank you, Shravani. So, good morning, everyone. I'm delighted you all welcome you all to the ninth webinar of Sarvarogya. Also, I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to Prasad Institute of Medical Sciences for supporting this initiative. First of all, on behalf of the entire Dhirais family, I welcome Deepthi Gulati Madam, who is a distinguished nutrition and public health specialist. We are truly honored to have you, ma'am, with us today to share your insights on food fortification and nutrition security. But before Deepthi, ma'am, expresses her thought, let's set the context right. Why this Sarvarogi webinar? Now, food. Food is essential for a body to develop, replace, and repair itself. Food provides us energy to work and play. It protects us from diseases and help to recover from illness. Now, these are lines not from a medical textbook. They are lines from a class 5 textbook, chapter Food, Health, and Hygiene. We all have read it, right? But the paradox is a child may be able to read it, learn it, write it in the examination, but the same child, when he goes home to a meal that fills the stomach but does not provide the essential nutrients. We have expanded our food production. We run some of the world's largest nutrition programs. And yet, malnutrition remains deeply embedded in our society. We need to understand malnutrition does not always means empty plate. Malnutrition is also the deficiency of essential micro and macronutrients, be it vitamins or minerals. At times, the plate is full, but the nutrition is missing. The burden becomes particularly worrying when we look at the girls. How often does the girl get the milk, egg, fruits, green vegetables? Now imagine the same undernourished girl becoming a mother. She enters the pregnancy not with the reserves, but with deficiencies. And then we expect that body to nurture another life. This is where the problem becomes intergenerational. A weak nutritional foundation cannot build a strong next generation. And importantly, this is not a problem that belongs only to the poorest household. This exists across the socio-economic group. Initially, India did attempt to address this nutritional deficiencies through supplementation program. But supplementation obviously has some challenges. There were issues of treatment adherence, there were issues of accessibility with respect to medicines, hesitancy with regards to taking medicine, and that is where food fortification entered the conversation. Now, food fortification is a process where staple food became the vehicle to deliver nutrients that were missing from the diet. Our food fortification journey dates back to 1950s when the government mandated fortification of vanaspati. Also, recently, the National Nutrition Strategy was released, which identified that fortification is one of the major interventions to address the micronutrient deficiencies in human body. See, we have programs, we have policies, we have regulations, we have fortified samples, and we have nutrition mission. But yet the deficiencies persist because we need to understand that just by adding an iron folic acid or a vitamin B12 to a staple food can address a specific micronutrient gap, but it cannot replace the quantity and the quality of the pulses of the vegetables, fruits, eggs, dairy, or other nutrient rich food. It cannot correct the unequal food allocation within the household or inadequate maternal nutrition. But fortification definitely adds a layer of our much larger nutrition strategy. And that is precisely what we are trying to understand through this webinar. Shrabani, over to you. Shrabani?
Thank you, Sneha ma'am. Now I request Sneha ma'am to share a brief profile of the guest, and then the speaker will give her talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Shrabani. So, Ms. Deepti Gulati is a distinguished nutrition and public health specialist with 48 years of professional experience across the Government of India, the United Nations, international development organizations, academia, and private sector. She is widely recognized for her expertise in food fortification, public health nutrition, nutrition policy, and capacity building. Her work has contributed to improving the health and nutrition of over 950 million people through large scale food fortification and other public health nutrition initiatives. She established India's first center of excellence for food fortification at NIFTEM Kundli and led Rajasthan's pioneering community based management of acute malnutrition program. Ms. Gulati is the recipient of numerous national honors, including the recent Iconic Leadership and Lifetime Excellence Award, in recognition of her outstanding contribution to nutrition and public health. Following her leadership roles at the UN World Food Programme, GAIN, NIFTEM Kundli, and TechnoServe, she now serves as an independent consultant, providing strategic and technical advice to governments, development partners, academic institutions, and the private sector. It's truly an honor to host you, ma'am, today in this webinar. Over to you.
It's my pleasure. And I'm very happy and honored to be here speaking to your students on enriching foods, enriching lives through food fortification. So if you agree, I can start right now, if that's okay with you. Okay, thank you. So the title of my presentation is Enriching Foods, Enriching Lives. What we have to understand that good nutrition is the basic foundation of life. It is central to growth and development, and it defines our health and life. With a population of over 1.4 billion people, India is the second most, or rather I would say now, the most populous country in the world. Despite substantial strides in food and grain production, about 26% of India's population, that is about 338 million, are food insecure, consuming less than 80% of minimum energy requirements. Malnutrition in Indian children is amongst the highest in the world, and that is not something that we are proud of. And obesity is now emerging as one of the major public health problems. So, India is seriously affected. Now let's look at whether nutrition is just a poverty issue. When we look at stunting, underweight, and thinness of women in the age group of 15 to 49, we find that in the highest income quintile, the stunting is much less than in the lowest income quintile, and so is the case with the underweight and thinness in women. But the undernutrition affects poorest the most. But when we look at anemia, it is 64% anemia in lowest income quintile, and it is 52% in the highest income quintile. When we look at anemia in women, it is 59% in the lowest income quintile, and it is 48% in the highest income quintile. Similarly, when we look at consumption of vitamin A rich foods in the past 24 hours, children in the age group of 6 to 23 months Only 47% in the highest income quintile are consuming vitamin A rich foods compared to 42% in the lowest income quintile. And same is the case with those consuming iron rich foods. So, poor consumption of micronutrient rich foods and anemia is not as per the poverty. Anemia and micronutrient deficiency affects all. As you rightly mentioned, malnutrition is an intergenerational cycle. Malnourished women lead to higher maternal mortality rates and inadequate fetal nutrition. This leads to low birth weight, impaired mental development, high mortality, and there is a risk of chronic adulthood diseases in children born to malnourished women. Stunting is very common in children whose mothers have been malnourished. And this stunted child has a reduced mental capacity and reduced physical development. This leads to stunted adolescence, which means impaired growth, reduced physical capacity, and these stunted adolescents then become malnourished women. So, poor fetal development to low birth weight to adult chronic diseases, we suffer at both ends. Now, let's see what is the kind of food we eat that defines our health. Let's also look at what all we are eating and how we are faring. And we also must learn the art of eating smart so that we eat healthy to stay healthy. Now, the first question that comes to our mind is, why should we focus on good nutrition? Good nutrition promotes growth, both intellectually and physically, leading to good, healthy life. It protects us against nutrition-related disabilities, which is vision impairment, improved immunity, and protection from illnesses. Higher cognitive and learning skills are also good in children who have access to good nutrition. High achievement in school and university, better work productivity and better wages, and hence prosperity. So, good nutrition must start early, right from the womb. Now, let's look at the importance of good nutrition and healthy lifestyle. All foods that we eat can be categorized as energy giving for routine work activities, and these are cereals, fats, and oils. Then we have the second category, which is bodybuilding and repair of routine wear and tear. And these are pulses, legumes, milk and milk products, nuts, eggs, meat, fish, etc. Then we have protecting and immunity building foods, which help us to fight against illnesses and infections. And these are the fruits and vegetables. Good nutrition helps to support and strengthen our immune system so that we are fit to fight lethargy, anemia, and other micronutrient deficiencies, obesity, and also non-communicable diseases like hypertension, diabetes, and cancer. Those who have very low levels of vitamin A and vitamin D are more susceptible to these non-communicable diseases. So, to keep our immune system healthy and strong, we also need adequate rest and low stress, regular exercise, good hygiene, and a healthy diet. Good nutrition impacts us very positively. When we eat adequate food and a balanced diet, we grow well, age late, and enjoy a healthy life. We are energetic and have good stamina. Our thinking ability, memory, and our academic performance improves. Friendly bacteria in colon increase, and hence our digestion and absorption improve. We glow, we resist diseases, we learn well and earn well, and our self-esteem improves. Food also impacts our mental health. It is an important to mental health as much as it is important for our physical health. A healthy diet is protective, and an unhealthy diet is a risk factor for depression and anxiety. A healthy diet affects brain health by boosting brain development, changing brain proteins and enzymes to increase neural transmitters, which are the connections between the brain cells. It increases good gut bacteria, which decreases inflammation, and inflammation is known to affect both cognition as well as mood. Raising serotonin levels through various food enzymes which improve mood is also an impact of healthy diet. But diets that are high in saturated fats, refined sugars, have a very potent negative impact on brain proteins. So, mood and digestive system health are closely linked via the brain gut connection. So, we need to nurture our gut feeding very carefully. If we look at an Indian typical diet, this is the composition of our diet that we are normally consuming. 50% of our plate is made up of grains and tubers, which is potatoes mainly. Dairy products are just about 17%. Meat and legumes, which are proteins, are just about 9%. Fruits, only 2%. Vegetables, only 9%. And 7% is sweets. This type of diet is high on cereals and low on micronutrient rich foods like fruits and vegetables. Now let's look at what is the suggested My Plate for the Day by the ICMR, National Institute of Nutrition. If you would look at it, almost 50% of your plate is made up of only fruits and vegetables. So we need to have lots of fruits and lots of vegetables because vitamins and minerals are required every day on a daily basis to ensure good health and to enable the body to fight diseases. But we are not consuming that. So, eating a well balanced diet is an important part of maintaining good health and a good immune system. But now let's see what we enjoy eating and how it impacts our health and our life. Foods that most of us love eating, including me, are salted snack foods, fried fast foods, carbonated beverages, candies, gums, chocolates, and most sweet desserts. The pictures are here, and I'm sure all of you just want to grab it even from the screen and have it. These are the food items that most of us find very appetizing, very interesting, and we are always wanting to eat them. But these are often labeled as junk foods. We will come to it why they're called junk. These are extremely popular but have low nutritional value. These foods are high in calories from sugar or fat, and that too saturated fat, which is bad for health. They are low on dietary fiber, low on protein, low on vitamins and minerals, and they are loaded with salt, which is a precursor for our blood pressure and heart related problems. Now let's look at the dangers of these junk foods. Body needs salt, fat, and sugar for energy to burn while we work and play. However, eating lots of junk food will overload our body with fat, sugar, and salt, which are bad for our health. So these are the ones which are overloaded with fat, sugar, salt, and these impact our health badly. They have a harmful effect on our brain function. They can become a source of cravings and addiction. And this leads to learning disorders, hyperactivity, वो जो हम कहते हैं ना चंचलता, hyperactivity, anxiety and depression. And these inhibit us from utilizing our emotions and intellect. Result is that we become fat, lethargic, poor in studies, prone to diseases, and we develop low self-esteem. अपने आप को जब हम शीशे में देखते हैं कि हम मोटे हैं, हम पढ़ने में भी अच्छे नहीं हो रहे हैं और बीमार जल्दी पड़ जाते हैं, आलस रहता है, तो that is not good for our self-esteem. We want to look at ourselves as smart youngsters out to grab the best that world has to offer to us. So let's choose our calories by the nutrient company they keep and not just by the taste. Let's look at some of the superfoods. Omega 3 fatty acids are essential fats that the body cannot make on its own. So we have to get these from food. These are needed for good heart health and our survival. High omega 3 foods include flax seeds, alsi ke beej, chia seeds, fish, walnuts, tofu, shellfish, canola oil, navy beans, sprouts, and avocados. Then we have probiotics. These are good bacteria like the ones already in our gut and intestinal tract. They make immune system stronger, boost gastrointestinal health. They help ease allergy symptoms and help us with lactose intolerance. Basically, dahi, lassi, these are very rich in probiotics. And then we have phytonutrients. Now let's understand what are phytonutrients. Phytonutrients are nature's natural defense as they have powerful beneficial effects and promote good health. These have antioxidants and anti inflammatory benefits. Phytonutrients help to detoxify our body systems and boost our immune system so that we are protected from diseases. Phytonutrients are present in fresh fruits and veggies, whole grains, herbs and spices, legumes, nuts, and seeds, as you can see in the pictures here. The vibrant colors found in the vegetables and fruits are due to the phytonutrients and they come in the colors of a rainbow. You all know the colors of the rainbow? So now let's look at what we should enjoy. So let's enjoy a rainbow plate and optimize our health. Red foods, which you know, like carrots, tomatoes, etc., they help to reduce cancer risk, boost immune system, and enhance brain and heart health. These are also anti-aging powerhouses. So you must consume foods, fruits, vegetables that are red in color. Orange foods help boost our immune system and optimize our eye and skin health. हमको झुर्रियां भी कम पड़ेंगी, स्किन भी खूबसूरत रहेगी और आईज की आंखों की रोशनी बनी रहेगी if we are consuming orange foods. Then we have yellow foods which have anti-inflammatory and promote eye, skin, brain, and heart health. And these days you would have heard that a lot of people suggest that you must have curcumin with some bit of black pepper. Curcumin is the important yellow compound of turmeric. हल्दी जो होती है उसका जो basic compound होता है वो curcumin होता है. And if we take half a teaspoon of curcumin with little bit of black pepper, either in honey or in milk, it gives us lot of good health. And it helps to provide anti-inflammatory effect. अंदर की जो सूजन होती है जो हमें पता नहीं चलती, वो खत्म हो जाती है. Then we have green foods, which again are anti-inflammatory and they support our liver and are vital for our brain and heart health. And you all know green leafy vegetables. I don't need to say that. सबको हरा रंग भी पता है और सब्जियां भी पता है. आप खाएं ना खाएं, आप पालक पनीर खाएं, वो तो आप सबको अच्छा लगेगा. और सरसों का साग, मक्की की रोटी खाएं, वो आपको अच्छी लगेगी. And these are very good for our health. And they also help to fight anemia. Then we have blue and purple foods, which again are anti-inflammatory, anti-cancer, and are good for the brain. Then we have white and tan foods. Again, these are anti-inflammatory properties and they support a healthy liver and optimize our hormonal health, which is very, very important in the age group that you are. So it is important to eat fresh foods of various colors every day, 1 to 2 servings of different colored fruits and vegetables. The darker, the better. every day make a great difference to your health. Now, let's look at the vitamin A and D deficiencies in India. And these I'm sharing with you the data of National Institute of Nutrition. This is a little dated data, but इसके बाद National Institute of Nutrition ने state wise data collect नहीं किया है, but all our national family health surveys indicate similar trends. Let's look at vitamin D deficiency in India. In J&K, it is 53 to 83%, Punjab 50%, Delhi 72 to 90%, Lucknow 75 to 90%, Hyderabad 34 to 52%, Tirupati 45 to 82%, Kolkata 92%, Mumbai 88%. Now, if we look at this, such high levels of vitamin D deficiency, and you all know that if we expose our body to direct sunlight for at least 15 minutes in a day, we expose our skin, whether it is our legs, it is our arms, it would help to build up vitamin D in our body, because vitamin D is not available through foods. There are very rare foods, some mushrooms that may be rich in vitamin D, which we are not consuming on a daily basis. So vitamin D we have to take from the sunlight, and we don't sit in the sunlight even during winters. Whenever we go out, we put a lot of anti-suntan lotion, and that does not allow vitamin D to be absorbed. So those are the reasons that even in a sunny country like India, we have such high levels of vitamin D deficiency. जो सन टैन नहीं लगाते, धूप में काम करते हैं, वो भी अपने आप को बहुत अच्छे से लपेट के करते हैं. स्किन का एक्सपोजर ही नहीं होता सनलाइट को, and that leads to vitamin D deficiency. Then we also have very high levels of vitamin A deficiency, and we also have very high percentage of population which is not eating even less than 50% of the required amounts of vitamin A rich foods, as you can see on this table. And when we look at the pool data, almost 62% of people suffer from vitamin D deficiency at the blood level. That is less than 20 micrograms per deciliter. And when we look at the percentage of population that is eating less than 50% of the required amount of vitamin A rich foods, this is 86.3%, which is very, very huge. And all what we have to do is eat green leafy vegetables, eat red, orange, and yellow fruits and vegetables, which would provide us with vitamin A, but we don't consume that. So India has a very high burden of vitamin A and D deficiencies, and these deficiencies impact everyone. It is not restricted to old people, it is not restricted to small, it is mostly impacting the adolescents and the young adults. Now, when we have such high levels of micronutrient malnutrition, we have 3 strategies to control these micronutrient malnutrition. Micronutrients are vitamins and minerals. Supplementation is one of the strategies. It is safe, efficient strategy to eliminate deficiencies. Capsules and syrups of vitamin A, D, other multivitamins are available in the market. And government is also providing weekly iron and folic acid tablets to school children. But Government of India's programs reach only about 55% of the population. And for us, we may have multivitamin tablets on our table, but most of the time we forget to even eat them. We don't, सामने पड़ी होती है बोतल, हम खोल के एक multivitamin tablet लेना भूल जाते हैं. So compliance is also a big issue. Then we have dietary diversification. Food prices are going up and up. Hence, most of the diets are only cereals and tubers, as I showed you in the plate. And our plate is very low in vegetables, very low in fruits, low in lentils and pulses, and foods from the animal sources. Now, if we don't consume a variety of fruits and vegetables, and we don't consume enough of lentils and foods from the animal sources, we would suffer from micronutrient malnutrition. And the problem with this dietary diversification is affordability, because affordability of a diversified diet is a big question. I would just give you an anecdote. When we were small kids, when I was small kid, and that is, I'm now 70, so you can think maybe 60 years back, we used to eat so many mangoes, and there used to be a competition between brothers and sisters, kaun zyada khayega. Nowadays, one mango, even in the peak of the season, is about 50 to 60 rupees. How many can afford? And mango is a very rich source of vitamins and minerals. So हम क्या करते हैं, एक आम लेते हैं, 5 हिस्से करते हैं, 5 फैमिली मेंबर्स खा लेते हैं. Same is the case with grapes, pears, bananas. One banana for 7 to 8 rupees. It becomes very unaffordable. Green leafy vegetables, which are supposed to be cheap, at least in Delhi, about 50 rupees a kilo is the cost of green leafy vegetables. So, affordability of a diversified diet becomes a big question. Then we have the third option, which is staple food fortification. Before I start on staple food fortification, I just want to re emphasize that dietary diversification is the best option. So try to include as much vegetables and fruits that you can have, because that would give you the best quality of micronutrients. And of course, supplements are there. And now we come to staple food fortification. It is a good option as staple food consumption is high. Now, what are staple foods? Staple foods are our cereals, rice and wheat. This is fat, that is ghee, oil, butter. Then we have milk and milk products, and then we have salt. And so the staples are basically 5: cereals, salt, oil, milk. So we have these staples and we need to fortify these staples. It is a very cost effective strategy because the cost of fortification is less than 0.1% of the maximum retail price. But sadly, very few foods are available in the market which are fortified, and we need to work on them. We need to nudge the industry. Industry is coming forward to fortify the 5 staples, and let's hope very soon more and more brands would be there. I have worked with TechnoServe, and with that confidence, I can say there across the country in India, over 500 industry partners are fortifying. Most of the milk that we are consuming, which is in packets, is fortified with vitamin A and D. Most of the packed oil that we are consuming, refined oil, that is fortified with vitamin A and D. All the salt that we consume is fortified with iodine, but we need to fortify cereals, that is wheat and rice, with iron, folic acid, and B12. But this fortified cereals, they are not readily and easily available in the market as of now. We are working towards it. So fortification is one of the most efficient and low cost strategy. It can yield significant results in a short period of time. Now let's understand what is food fortification. Food fortification or enrichment is the process of adding vitamins and minerals to food. Fortification, especially of staples like wheat flour, oil, milk, rice, salt, is considered to be a good public health policy and strategy to provide micronutrients to reduce dietary deficiencies across population groups. And fortification can also be a purely commercial choice to provide extra nutrients in a food product. Food fortification offers a tremendous opportunity towards improving the micronutrient status of the populations. The strategic advantages of fortification are that staple foods are consumed regularly by all: wheat flour, oil, milk, rice, and salt. These are the five staples. They are best suited for fortification because आप कुछ भी भूल सकते हो, आप खाना खाना तो नहीं भूलोगे। और अगर आप खाना खाओगे तो उसमें आप चाहे व्हीट फ्लावर लेंगे या राइस लेंगे, यू विल बी टेकिंग वन ऑफ द सीरियल्स, you will be cooking your vegetables or dal with little bit of oil, you would be consuming milk, and you would be adding salt to everything. So आप अपना supplement लेना भूल सकते हो. You can even forget to take your medicines for a disease that you have, but you can never forget to eat food. So if we fortify the commonly consumed foods, which we call as staples, then we are able to provide micronutrients to fulfill at least about 25 to 30% of your day's requirement. Fortification is a proven, simple, low cost technology. It is preventive, population wide approach through which foods can be made available to the entire population groups, including those served through the public distribution system, ICDS, and the MDM. Since staple foods are centrally processed and micronutrients are added in very low dose, fortification poses no risk of excessive intake. This I will also show you through a table. There is no change in the color, taste, texture, or quality of staples due to fortification, and hence it has a very high acceptability by the consumers. There is high bioavailability of micronutrients, and the impact is rapid without requiring behavior change. आप तो रोटी खा ही रहे हो, वो fortified होगी, you will get all the micronutrients by consuming a fortified cereal. Micronutrients added to food staples have high stability during cooking as well as storage. Fortification improves the work capacity and the health, and hence it contributes to improving the national economic performance also. Because हम तंदुरुस्त रहेंगे तो काम कर पाएंगे, काम करेंगे तो देश तंदुरुस्त रहेगा, देश की इकोनॉमी तंदुरुस्त रहेगी. Now, food fortification is not a new idea. Food fortification global timeline I would share with you. But you know what I'm just trying to say is that it is 2026 that I am talking to you about food fortification, whereas mandatory fortification of oils and fats started in Canada way back in 1918. हमसे 108 साल पहले. Mandatory fortification of salt iodization started in the US in 1923. Mandatory fortification of flour with vitamin B1 started in Canada in 1933. Similarly, 1934, 1940, and 1954. In India, food fortification started first in 1953 when Vanaspati was mandatorily fortified with vitamin A. We started adding vitamin D only because vitamin D helps to prevent the oxidation. It was not added with the intent of increasing vitamin D, but vitamin A and vitamin D were both added in Vanaspati, and it was mandatory in 1953. But over a period of time, we realized that Vanaspati or the hydrogenated fats are not healthy. people started shifting from vanaspati to refined oil, but we did not carry the advantage of fortified vanaspati, that is, addition of vitamin A and vitamin D. In 1962, we started with the salt iodization, which then became mandatory in 1972. Now, let's look at what are the food vehicles and what are they fortified with. Wheat flour and rice, they are fortified with iron, folic acid, and B12. Oil and milk are fortified with vitamin A and D2. Why I say D2? Because D2 is from the vegetarian source, whereas vitamin D3 is from the animal source. We put green dot on all the foods that are commonly consumed, and that green dot shows that it is from the vegetarian source. So if we are fortifying oil and milk and we are putting a green dot, we have to have D2 variety of vitamin D added to it. And then salt is iodized, and now we are also adding iron in some cases. So salt is iodized. Recommended is it should be fortified with iodine and iron. Now, say I was just wanting to say that even with food fortification, uh, we never breach the recommended dietary allowance, and the tolerable upper limit we are reaching only 37% of in men and 45% in women. Same is the case with vitamin D. Same is the case with vitamin A. We are never crossing even the recommended dietary allowances, and it is much lower for the tolerable upper limit. Cost to fortify is very little, as you can see. It is only 8 rupees per year if we are using fortified cereals, 2 to 3 rupees for milk, and 2 rupees 50 paisa to 3 rupees for edible oil. Fortification works, as we can see. In Canada, fortification brought down vitamin A deficiency from 48 to 2%. Fortification of wheat flour brought down anemia, iron deficiency from 37 to 15%, and from 19 to 9% anemia reduction within a span of 2 years. Even in India, when I was working in Rajasthan, if you look at the underweight stunting and under 5 mortality are similar in Rajasthan as well as in all India level. The children who received at least one dose of vitamin A was 60% at all India level, and it was just about 40% in Rajasthan. Yet when we introduced fortified milk and fortified oil in Rajasthan universally, the Comprehensive National Nutrition Survey showed that the all India level deficiency was 21.5% to 15.6% at all India level, and it was only 1 to 1.9% in Rajasthan. Similarly, women were consuming, only 17% of women in Rajasthan were consuming iron folic acid tablets compared to 30% at the all India level. Yet the anemia deficiency reduced by about 6 to 7% across the population. So introduction of fortified wheat flour in PDS brought down anemia levels, and fortification of edible oil and milk brought down the levels of vitamin A deficiency in Rajasthan. Fortification has rich returns on low investment. It has a potential to enrich foods and improve the lives of millions of people. It's a basic right which they richly deserve. So let's not miss out on the opportunity. Let's remember the basics. No food is good or bad. It's a great source of pleasure and happiness. We must balance our food choices and enjoy our favorite foods with responsibility. So let's start our day with good breakfast to fill the empty tank. Snack smart. Limit sugary foods, salt and refined grains. जो आपको मैंने दिखाए थे, स्वाद सबको लगते हैं, but we have to limit. Eat more of grains, lentils, fruits, and vegetables, as they're good source of complex carbohydrates, vitamins, minerals, and they're low in fat and free cholesterol. Drink plenty of water to flush out toxins. Choose to eat junk food only once in a while, and get moving by walking, biking, jogging, or balance calorie intake. So set yourself up for success, and I'm offering you 9 tips for healthy eating. Eat a diversified diet cooked with fortified staples. Space out eating and do exercise. Drink plenty of water. Moderation is the key. Limit oils, sugar, and salt. It's not just what you eat, and it is how you eat. Eat slowly, chew well. Enjoy a rainbow on your plate. Fill it up with colorful fruits and vegetables. Eat more healthy carbs and whole grains. Enjoy healthy fats and avoid unhealthy fats and trans fats. Put protein sources in perspective. Consume sufficient vitamins and minerals for strong bones, good vision, high stamina, and better immunity. So, friends, eat wise or be otherwise. Thank you.
Thank you. Extremely thankful to you for such an insightful session, ma'am.